Welcome everyone to the new JFK show number 279. We're back on YouTube. Larry is loaded for bear, but I do want to talk just a minute about censorship on the YouTube channel. Okay. When we put up the 4 Oliver Stone shows, those were blocked in all territories. It said this video is not visible anywhere and will not be shown. So those 4, and if you remember, we did Joe Rogan. That one's blocked as well when Rogan was interviewing Oliver Stone. So
are those blocked on copyright? Are those blocked on copyright grounds?
No, on the guidelines, community guidelines.
Well, what guideline did they violate?
Well, number one, they did claim copyright, and then they did not allow you. Sometimes they'll let you use it without the copyright, but they blocked the whole video. You could not see it. So there are some JFK shows on the YouTube channel that I can't put them up, or they'll strike the channel down. And those 5 are one of them.
So they got watchdogs, looking at that stuff all the time.
What they do? Oh, actually, it was a bot that did it.
Yeah, algorithms. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I can go in and ask for an appeal, and a real human looks at it, and we'll see if that works. But there is no way that they're going to approve the Oliver Stone critique that we did, nor the Joe Rogan. It's just it's blocked in all.
But is that because of copyright?
No, more than just copyright. I have many things that have copyright, and they always say that it doesn't affect your channel, but all information goes to the copyright holder. Or if there's any,
you mean it's because we're ripping apart the movie as a piece of shit?
That's exactly what happened. No, but it's more than that. Look, Oliver Stone and his work is protected all the way around. See, some people will let you use it, but they claim, the rights on it. But Oliver Stone's not even let it be viewed in any way on YouTube. That is,
he turns out to be a colossal disappointment. After earning my esteem and admiration with JFK, he's turned out to be a miserable failure. Yeah. His film on the World Trade Center was ridiculous, garbage, tripe. And what he did here with this JFK Revisited was useless. Worse than useless, because it made it think there was a real question about the magic bullet when we know it from A to Z. This is embarrassingly bad.
He's also letting LBJ off the hook in that video as well. So there was, in fact, we said it before, there wasn't anything in this film that wasn't known 35 years ago. And it's just as simple as that. So, all right. So I wanted to let everyone know that. However, if you do want to watch the shows, then go to 153news.net and go to my channel, and they're there. And believe it or not, they have like 20,000 views on them. So it's out there.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, I feel good about that, Gary.
Yeah, you can go to you. That's where all the shows went. After 185, they all went to 153 News, and they're still there. However, putting them on YouTube, 185.
All right, we trust your judgment. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, you get a lot more views on YouTube, just the way it is, but you can't put up every show. See, when Don Fox was doing his J word and we were ringing the bell the whole show, that one was not allowed. Okay.
Really?
So there is censorship, but they have that an awful lot. I'm talking about 95% of our shows go right through, and we've got good information, just like tonight. So, Larry, I'm going to give you a host, and Larry, like the people like to say, Larry Rivera has a steamroller and just rolls over the JFK community. Larry, we get a comment about that every week, and they say, yeah, he's the one. So you can sit there and be modest and blush, but we're just telling it like it is.
What? I don't know anything about that. I just know that we're plowing ahead, like you say, and this whole thing with Mexico City, the more documents that come out, the better understanding we have. And again, I would like to direct anybody who really wants to know about Mexico City to Bill Simpich, State Secrets. It's up on maryfarrell.org, and you can get it there. To give you a primer on Mexico City, the only thing that we've been doing is, you know, with the new documents, getting further down the road with the interpretation. And one of those things, which has nothing to do with that or the releases of documents, has to do with them very obscure and rarely seen a video at that time. It was probably an 8mm in 1962, which was the third marriage of Win Scott in Mexico City. Okay, we've talked about ad nauseum on the relationship that Win Scott had with 3 consecutive Mexican presidents, all right, which were in his pocket, like Don Corleone, you know, in the movie, you know, the judges in his pocket, the same thing, you know, 3 in a row. And we're talking about, you know, 6-year terms, you know, 18, almost 2 decades, Jim, where Win Scott had a direct involvement in the inner policies of, you know, Mexico. You know, that is astounding.
So in a nutshell, for those 18 years, the president was a complete CIA operative.
That's it all the way, brother. You can, you know, any way you want to cut it. But the relationship was such that the president of Mexico at the time, Adolfo López Mateos, stood as best man at Win Scott's 3rd wedding. Okay, there in 1962. Now, we have been looking at, you know, all of the Mexican people that were involved. You know, we talked about Gustavo Díaz Ordaz and Luis Echeverria, you know, in the group of people, López Mateos, Win Scott, you know, and but we never looked at the other side. For example, the people that worked with Win Scott at the embassy, I mean, at the CIA station there in the embassy, who were part of his team, his inner circle. And when I started to look at that, it was like unbelievable. You know, everybody was there, you know, and we'll go through it now. First thing I want to show is the actual video. It's only a 3-minute clip, and then we'll talk about it, and then I'll show you some stills about it from the clip, you know, and how important could this be, you know? You know, when you have this whole thing about trying to make Lee Oswald a scapegoat, you know, a patsy in Mexico City, and this whole thing about, you know, him supposedly being there, obviously being impersonated. I think that 99%, you know, is certain on that. And
oh, Larry, it's 100%.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, could you
would Mexico have had a good reason to participate in the assassination of JFK or its cover-up?
Well, yeah, and you know, the thing about Mexico City is that the documents that survive, they make the CIA look like real, you know, dumbasses, you know, and not being able to coordinate, for example, a wiretap with a photo of that person who went in, you know what I mean? Which they were never able to do, not even a wiretap or even close to Lee Oswald's voice, you know, completely being impersonated. One of the final nails in the coffin was that on the 28th of September, which was a Saturday, they had this is funny. They had transcripts of wiretaps, but neither of the offices were open on the Saturday. You know, so how stupid could that be? You know, so but let's go ahead and look at this. This is very, very interesting. 1962, the wedding reception of let me start here. Our friend Win Scott, and we need to share sound, optimize for video. Everything is good. See if you can
go.
All right. All right.
That one was loaded.
There's so many heavy hitters there, Larry.
Ambassador Thomas Mann is there. David Atlee Phillips is there. Charlotte Bustos, who I never
and
knew.
Seeing her, Larry, I'm in love.
All right.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, the three presidents right there, 18 years of presidency of Mexico. And there, I don't know if you noticed where Charlotte, is like approaching the president of Mexico, sort of like in his ear, maybe saying something, personal, I'm saying, hey, my tourist visa is up, because one of the things about the TDYs were that all these agents would come and go from one point to the other. If they worked out of Washington, but they would go on tours of duty, anywhere in the world. They were like chess pieces on a chessboard, and could be moved wherever you wanted, and officially they were not listed as employees of the station, of the CIA station, which probably listed no more than 50 employees. But with the TDYs coming and going, you could double that easily, and that's what all these agents coming and going were all about. That's how they, place them in Mexico City, but not really Mexico City, because they really live in Washington, D.C. or in Langley or whatever, So it's crazy, that we were looking at, the presidents of Mexico, and then all of a sudden, I'm looking at the reception line, and let me go ahead and take that here. Let me see if I have that. Wait, hold on. Not yet.
Was Ann Goodpasture in there too?
I believe I've located her. Okay, I'll show you. Okay.
Yeah, you need a screen share?
Here we go.
Yeah.
You see that? All right. Nope, not that way. We'll go the other way. There she is. And this is Caesar, her husband of a year and months. At this time, she's 33. He's 40. All right. This is the guy who had been attached to the Argentine Air Force, but he was working as an attaché in Washington for so many years. When these two got together, actually, he had a daughter from another woman, and which is listed as Charlotte's stepdaughter, who ended up going back to Argentina, to live with her mother. And this is one here where they're entering the reception area, and here's Charlotte. This guy in the background, guess who? Who does that look like?
Atlee Phillips.
Atlee Phillips. Here's the president of Mexico, Lopez Mateos, and he is escorting Win Scott. And right behind them, here comes Gustavo Diaz Ordaz. He's the one who succeeded this guy. Scumbag. Okay. And as you can see here, there is a greeting line in the background. There's Charlotte, and this woman, I believe, is Ann Goodpasture. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, and here's Win. This is all from, this is extracted. You have to go and slow this down and everything. This is when they were first coming in. I guess this is like inverted here. And here it is. Here he is. Jim.
It's the biggest spook wedding of all time.
Yeah, this is Atlee Phillips right here.
Wow. Wow.
Knee deep in the JFK assassination.
Here he is at the reception. Here's the
Remember, according to E. Howard Hunt, the chain of command went from Lyndon Johnson to Cord Meyer to David Atlee Phillips, then to William Harvey, then to David Sanchez Morales. So, I mean, he was right there. Western Hemisphere CIA.
Yeah. And there's a long story to that, the Western Hemisphere and all these guys that were in Mexico City at the same time. Sanchez Morales definitely was in Mexico City doing TDYs with Atlee Phillips, 62, around this time, actually. It's amazing, that look, you might look around, you might find Sanchez Morales, at this wedding. Anyway, here she is, the love of my life. Now,
beautiful, just beautiful.
Of course, and these are definitely, Zero, a German family. Another thing, what is she wearing around her neck?
A pearl necklace.
That's right. Look at all the photos that we have showed before. And what is she wearing? Pearl necklace. Hello, detective,
Reminds me of ZZ Top tune.
Yeah. All right. And there she is. Here's another one. Here's Atlee. He's bowing here, and here's Charlotte. Here's Anne. And as you can see, and these are, from the actual film, that have been extracted. Amazing, that we can do this digitally. And here we go.
Good pasture. Bustos. Phillips.
This must be a print, Larry, because it can't be. The original would be more precise.
Oh, of course. These are, of course. This is from the
fourth or fifth generation, I'm going to guess.
Yeah. And so here's a collage, to give you these were the high rollers in Mexico at the time, and when Scott, had these Mexican presidents in his pocket the way that he did. And that's why Win Scott did not survive into the 70s, that he knew too much, So, and here is Ambassador Mann. Okay, and he's quite a story. Let me this one you have to, because I know you're going to enjoy this one, Jim. Hold on, let me go over here. And Ambassador Mann, I have you right here. Here we go. All right.
The story of Ambassador Thomas Mann adds another strange twist to the Mexico City scenario. He served as ambassador to Mexico during the following years, leaving exactly a month after the assassination. Wow. May 8, 1961 to December 22nd, 1963. From Spartacus, this most relevant information on Thomas Mann. Thomas Clayton Mann was born in Laredo, Texas on 11 November 2012. Mann went to Baylor in 1929, graduated 5 years later in 1934.
You mean 1912?
1912. He's more than 12 years old.
Born in 1912, right. Went to Baylor in 29 and graduated 5 years later. Then in 1934, he began work as a lawyer in Texas. So he must have had a law degree somewhere in the middle. In 1942, Mann joined the Department of State, held various diplomatic posts in Uruguay, 42 to 43, Venezuela, 47 to 49, before being appointed director of the State Department's Office of Inter-American Affairs. In the summer of 1950, Tommy Corcoran, who worked for United Fruit, went to see Mann in his office in Washington. Corcoran told Mann he was worried that Jacob Arbenz would win the forthcoming election in Guatemala.
A free election, because Arbenz wanted to distribute the land to the peasants. Oh,
right. We can't have the wrong people winning election, for God's sake. Yes, man. Does our government have any program for bringing about the election of a middle-of-the-road candidate in Guatemala? According to Mann, he replied, no, we don't. That is for the people of that country to decide. Fat chance. In 1953, Mann was appointed to a post at the U.S. Embassy in Greece. 2 weeks after the overthrow of President Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala, Mann arrived in the country as deputy chief of mission at the U.S. Embassy. In September of 1955, President Eisenhower appointed Mann as U.S. ambassador to El Salvador. In October of 1957, he became Assistant Secretary of State for Economic Affairs. He also held the post of Assistant Secretary of State for Inter-American Affairs from August of 1960 through January of 61. Mann had been a longtime friend of Lyndon B. Johnson.
Oh,
Lyndon B. Johnson. Then in 1961, he persuaded President Kennedy to appoint him as ambassador to Mexico. I wonder if it weren't Johnson who persuaded Jack to appoint Mann. In this post, he developed a close relationship with Winston Scott, CIA chief in Mexico City. He also successfully negotiated settlement of a boundary dispute between Mexico and the U.S. Mann worked very closely with the military government, Adolfo Lopez Mateos.
This is the most important thing right here.
Mann told the president via Winston Scott that the U.S. administration was willing to provide covert assistance to help anti-communist groups in Mexico.
So, this is even more. It's even more against Lee Oswald, as far as, the predicament that he was in Mexico. I mean, he had
a chance.
He had the most powerful people that you could imagine, and this Thomas Mann is also at that. So he was good friends with Win Scott, and I've been reading and more research is that this whole CIA station in Mexico City was more like a brotherhood. These people were really, really close and connected, and that's why Philip Agee, when he wrote that book on the CIA, he wrote about Charlotte Bustos. And then in the investigation that came after that, it came out that Charlotte Bustos and her husband had social intermingling with Philip, in Mexico City, going to each other's houses for dinner and drinks and whatever, So that social element, is now confirmed. And where we now, this whole thing in Mexico City, which I have to agree was, if you study the cables of the 8th and the 9th and the 9th and the 10th, and how it was all handled, there was, I want to show you guys something here. Let me first cue it up because I believe it's very important. Why do we do these things?
Somebody's got to.
Yeah, I know. Nothing else to do with their lives.
How'd you find that little video, Larry? That's just
wonderful. I was going through Mexican websites in Spanish.
That's just
wonderful. Larry knowing Spanish. He wouldn't be able to get
a gem. Gem. I like the music, by the way. I like the music they added.
Yeah, deeply embedded in some article that I ran across. Hold on, please. Hold on just a second.
No, that was published as a social event, right? Because it was a wedding, a reception.
Yeah, really?
City. Man, there's those Charlotte Bustos there, the super spook, recording everyone's conversations and videoing everyone. She
knew everything.
She would just charm the pants off of you, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
My God, she could get any information about any guy I know.
Hold on. Okay, since we're on that topic, here. Okay, here she is. Okay, what is she wearing here? A collection of, okay, not pearls, but obviously beads of some kind. Pearls. Okay.
Those photographs do not do her justice.
No, of course not. And then here, the wedding. What are those?
Yeah, pearls.
Pearls. Okay.
Like pearls.
Right. She had quite an affinity for these things, So
none of these photographs are remotely equal to the woman. My goodness.
Don't you think that would be like on purpose, maybe?
Yeah, maybe a kind of a cover.
Well, why would they change her name the way they did? She was involved in some very important stuff. I'm not, later on, we'll have to talk about, what her role might have been, in the cables of October. Obviously, she might have been following orders,
I think she was running the whole shop down there, Larry. She was
yeah. She was the one. She was the one. And
Yeah, she just
I
wanted to
agree.
be a secretary when she got interviewed by the what is it,
No,
HSPA?
who goes from a GS2 to a GS 12 in, I believe it was 9 years.
Yeah,
9
She
years.
was moving
you
up.
got to be good.
Not
You know-
very many people,
Oh, yes, she was recommended highly in everything she did.
Hold on.
Well, she was charming everybody, for God's sake.
No, but look, you would see her. She's a very attractive, but you wouldn't suspect her of running all this,
Right,
counterintelligence.
right.
Well,
she's over there watching reel to reels and a whole row of them. And
looks are deceiving, aren't they?
yes, they
Okay,
are.
Indeed.
Okay, this is what I wanted to get to. Okay, and very, very important. And let me grab this again. Okay, here we go. Now, we talked about before about the LIENVOY, the wiretapping operation, and the reports that were generated on a monthly basis so that they could keep these filed away for the following fiscal year to renew, the funding for the operation, in this case, LIENVOY, the wiretap operation, as opposed to LIEMT, which was the photographic surveillance. All right. Now, in September, we had this incident, okay, which says on, I think maybe 8 September 1963, a Russian-speaking female contacted the Soviet embassy and asked for Sviatoslav Fedorovich Kuznetsov, KGB. She identified herself by name and as a professor from New Orleans. She gave the address of her apartment and asked for a meeting. This lead was promptly followed up by station investigative assets who identified the woman and learned that she was attending a philosophers conference at the U of Mexico. She returned to the U.S. 17 September. All available information forwarded to headquarters for passing to a DENVI. DENVI is the FBI. Okay. Now, this is the proper procedure, okay, for anybody who called the Russian embassy, no matter from where in Mexico City, even from anywhere in the world. Okay, and look at the reaction. Okay, a Russian speaking, this one actually spoke Russian, not like later on where you see supposedly a Lee Oswald speaking broken Russian, which never happened because he was quite fluent in Russian. All right, and where you have this woman, and this is the September report on LIENVOY. Now, Lee Oswald's first contact with the Cuban and the Soviet embassies were on the 27th of September, a Friday, and then supposedly later on the 1st of October. But the main thing here is that the encounter had Lee or whoever went and impersonated him, it should have been reported in this LIENVOY end of month report. It was not. Okay. And these reports, if you go and check out the documentation, they were religiously reported month after month, and as we said before, they noted all the lines that had been intercepted. Okay. And as you can see, it was a combination of the Soviet and Cuban plus the Mexican component, who also had the enemies of President Lopez Mateos, the Communist Party, and all these media outlets who reported all these barbaric things about Lopez Mateos, and he had them intercepted as well in the LIENVOY project, because as you recall, it was a joint operation between the U.S. and the Mexican government. That is why this is where they are in bed together. you know. So the monthly operational report for September 1963 should have included Lee Oswald. We've spoken about this before, okay, so many times. Should have included Lee Oswald, you know, or anybody resembling him going there to try to, you know, get into Cuba, to Russia through Cuba and all that visa nonsense, you know, which the more we study, you know, continues to be more and more of a nonsense, especially now that we know that about Lee Oswald's passport. We spoke about that before. I feel like I'm talking too much here.
No, you're doing great.
So Russian speaking female, okay, there should have been, you know, they should have been sending all kinds of cables and dispatches to headquarters, okay, and this is the key here, headquarters, okay, because later on when you have this thing with Lee Oswald with the Charlotte Bustos, October, the twin cables of October, okay, they're talking about sending them to all the different agencies like the FBI, the Navy, ONI, you know, instead of to headquarters, and let headquarters disseminate from there. Okay, and that's the big difference here. And this is why this whole thing stinks to high heaven. You know, it says clearly that any incident here would have been sent to headquarters to pass on to the FBI and let headquarters decide and delegate, you know, how this information was going to be disseminated. Okay, and that it was the proper way of doing these things. Anyway, that's one thing that's extremely important here, because as you can see, and this is a production, all of these are tapes and transcripts, you know, that came from September 1963. Okay, now none of those raised any flag. Okay, however, you know, later on, when they were talking about October, the first cable that was sent was talking about an American male who spoke broken Russian. Okay. Now, if something like that had happened, it would have immediately rung bells all over the place, and it did not. Okay. So this is the October. Okay. Just to make matters fair and fair as square, the way they should be. Okay. They're talking about an English speaking man. Okay. At the Soviet embassy. Not a guy speaking broken Russian, okay, so cannot be the same guy. And, you know, just in case, you know, this MEXI 6453, this is one of the most important cables ever in relating to Mexico City. Here it is, 6453. But when you look at 6453, okay, it's the first one that came out that said man speaking broken Russian, and in the second part, item number 2 said the guy that was 35, balding, you know, remember, that's not the guy, you know, at all, looking at all like Lee Oswald. So finally, you know, the November LIENVOY report finally mentions Lee, but you know, it all gets washed away. However, now we are able to piece this whole thing a lot better. And again, I have to reiterate on the work of on state secrets. There's a lot of really good information. What we're uncovering now is just, you know, helping out, moving that information forward. And I think that's all we got here, fellas. You know, I think Charlotte, you know, is quite the find there, you know.
So, Larry, that little video clip is just sensational.
You've got Atlee Phillips there. Oh, by the way, one of the things that has not been spoken about very much is that a year in the aftermath of the Warren Commission report coming out in October of 1964, or September 1964, there were still doubts about the visa application in the Cuban consulate with Sylvia Duran and Oswald and everything, and they wanted to find samples of a typewriter to verify. This is funny, to verify the visa applications with what typewriter might have been used to type those up. So they send a whole team of CIA garbage pickers, led by, of all people, David Atlee Phillips, to go and find, a sample, and they find this little packing list, of stuff that had been sent to Cuba, from the Cuban consulate. It's so funny because, it's so late in the game, they're still trying to, they do not even know, they do not even believe, or they have doubts about the whole visa process with Lee Oswald that we have been talking about all along, Jim. How many times have we sat here and showed, the visa application and how, all the things that are not right in there, and then we showed, the recently discovered passport, from June '63, that Lee, whoever went to what Mexico, should have flashed that passport, yet he did not. And it is mentioned in the visa application. So this whole scenario with the visa application in Mexico City had serious doubts. And these documents have also been rediscovered. Let me see if I can dig that up here real quick. I mean, that is unbelievable here. Why do we get it? Visa. Hold on. Yeah, you might want to pause this.
Okay.
Pause it real quick. All right. Welcome back.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, brother. I mean, listen, I hope you guys can keep a straight face on this. So there is a doubt about the authenticity of the visa application. So the CIA goes trash picking. Okay. And let me go here. Request station cable its opinion authenticity of visa application. Also, if available or possible, promptly procure, desire other examples or blanks for comparison and possible authentication. The stationery of Havana's response, check out with any exemplars.
So they started digging in the trash.
Obviously, they think it's fake.
And remember, and this is what they're talking about, which we have not. In fact, I published an article on Garrison magazine precisely about this. Okay, with ST. Okay, so then we get this. The station does not have exemplars available for comparison with reference visa application. Typeface matches that of other documents from embassy. Weak impression of top of lowercase letter E also appears in documents from commercial office of embassy, apparently prepared on same typewriter as visa application form. Stationery used for letter from Havana appears genuine. Both documents of authentic flavor, attempting to obtain blank visa application for comparison. Lita Mill 9, who was the nastiest penetration agent inside, working, Luis Alberto Soto, working inside the Cuban embassy, and he's the one that knew everything. He's the one that responded over to Shaw, Lawrence Barker, on everything that went down in the Cuban embassy. He was their most important mole, inclusive at the time of the assassination. And he recently received a letter from Mercy Martinez, who actually signed letter from Havana. We'll check signatures. Okay, now, station does not have exemplars available for comparison. Typeface matches. Okay, we already got this. Then, okay, an item dated January 9, 1964 recovered from the Cuban embassy trash, which may have been prepared on the same typewriter used to prepare the visa applications form of reference A, and 3 Xerox copies of the signature of Mercy Martinez. You guys like Lawrence Barker. Okay. Now, guess who?
Not Phillips.
This guy down here, Michael Choden, okay, coordinating, He's the officer's name. This is one of, in fact, remember so many people, you know, associated him with Maurice Bishop. Maurice Choden was his true and most common pseudonym, Jim and Gary, Michael Choden. And, okay, as mentioned in the LIENVOY chapter, belongs to David Atlee Phillips. Who would have thought that Super Spook Phillips would have had to stoop to the level of coordinating the mundane operation of picking through Cuban embassy trash to find evidence against Lee Oswald this late in the game?
That's amazing.
Amazing, amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So it goes on, and here is the document that they found, okay, to use to check the typeface versus the visa application. I mean, you know, I don't know about you guys, but, you know, this is, what the heck is going on here?
It sounds like they may be planting something in the trash to make a comparison.
Well, these are real. These are bona fide documents. I think that there might have been the possibility that this whole visa application thing was all falsified from the beginning by, you know, Win Scott's people, you know.
Larry, I think that's absolutely plausible, 100%. Yeah, the whole thing was manufactured from beginning to end.
I mean, that was their specialty, false flag operations,
right,
you know.
Right.
And
fabricated documents, Larry.
That would be the only reason. That would be the only reason that they're trying to CYA, you know, and find out, you know, let's make sure that we're covering our ass here on the visa application, you know, and the typewriter that produced, you know, all the bogus shit that's on there. I mean, it's so crazy, you know. And so anyway, I went ahead and did my own study on the typefaces, you know. Why not? So anyway,
and they were the same typewriter.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I believe they were, but why are they going to be doing this so late in the game? We're talking about October 1964. You know,
a whole year.
This is crazy. You know,
could it be in relation to the Warren Commission?
Absolutely. You know, 2 weeks later, you know, they were, you know, handing it over to LBJ. You know, I think the thing about Thomas Mann and LBJ is very fertile ground, which would explain a lot about what, don't you think, you know, if, oh my God, just think about what's going on. Put yourself in the situation on the assassination that LBJ is now president. You know, all this shit coming out of Mexico City. Who do you think LBJ is going to call? Huh?
Yeah.
His boy, Thomas Mann. You know? We just gave you the information. He was, you know, in fact, he was probably in the same group as Connolly, you know, Linda's boy.
Just think about how important is a fanciful story that Lee went to the Mexico City to get a visa to escape via Cuba. I mean, that's like the linchpin of their claim he had the motivation because he was a communist agent.
And Thomas Mann was pushing the thing about Gilberto Alvarado, you know, the Nicaraguan guy that supposedly saw Lee collect $6,500, you know, there in in the consulate, you know, which was completely debunked, you know, right away that same weekend, you know, where even Atlee Phillips was also involved in that interpretation there. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen,
Larry.
Good stuff, Larry. Good stuff.
Yeah. All right. I guess we'll call it on that. Larry, I mean, I'm just totally blown away with all this coming together the way it is.
Sherry.
Wonderful video clip.
Charlotte Bustos was not just any dumb secretary, all right?
No.
She was involved in very sensitive counterintelligence, you know, I mean, you name it, you know, she's right there up there with Morales. I bet you anything when Morales went to Mexico City, him and those two sat down together and talked shop. Trust me.
Yeah, just amazing. All right. We'll call it on that. Thanks a lot, Dr. Fetzer, Larry Rivera. This has been JFK number 279. You want new information? You got it. We'll see you next time.
It is. Come and get it.